Okay, so we've got a Huey help. Now, full disclosure, I have not read this. I only read the headline. And the headline made me laugh. So I was like, okay, well, this is the one we're going with. The headline was my boss thinks I'm his therapist. I thought this could be fun.
Yeah, so shout out to our listeners for emailing us. You can do so, Chasta and Huey, spell AND at gmail.com. Yeah, gmail.com.
Ooh, Chris Relva, good comment. Too many times judgments come from small minds. Music moves us all in different ways. Amen, brother. Yeah. Which is why we love you, Chris. All right. So Kara wrote in, I have been working at a small company for 3 years, and my boss has always treated me like a friend, texting me, joking around in meetings, sometimes oversharing about his personal life. Recently, he's been going through a messy divorce, and our once breezy relationship has turned into him calling me after hours to vent or cry about his failed marriage. I've tried to cut it off by not responding after a certain hour, but now he's bringing it up at work, pulling me into his office for quick chats. I don't want to be his therapist, but I'm afraid that I will, if I try to establish hard boundaries, it's going to jeopardize my job. That's a legitimate fear. Do I continue being his emotional support or risk my job? Okay, so what's interesting here, let me just say the funny part is I technically on paper, I am Huey's boss. So it's funny that we're even talking about this. I've had my own experiences with bosses, but you and I we exist in this really interesting place because you and I have known each other for about 15 years, I think, maybe a little bit more than that.
So we've been working together for 13, but we knew each other longer before that.
Right, exactly. And so, and I've only been your boss for almost 4 years. So that's an interesting dynamic. And there were plenty of people that were worried about me stepping into a role where I was the boss of my friends. Because everybody I worked with at the Bone, I was like family close with. Yeah. And some people even said it can't be done. You cannot do it. Grade me, Huey. Grade me here on a live podcast. How have I done with that sort of like, we're in professional mode, now we're in friend mode? Because that's how I try to compartmentalize.
Phenomenal. Well, I think that's the thing. You always give that disclaimer, like real talk, like we're talking about something. You're like, okay, let me put my boss hat on. And all right, let's talk as in these terms. And then you're like, okay, hat off, friend to friend.
Friend to friend.
Private room. Okay. This is what I think you need to do or whatnot. And I respect that too, like being honest. So I know I can trust you no matter the situation. Our situation's different than I think this person who emailed us. Sounds like these two people met through work in pre-established positions.
Roles.
Yeah. So I don't know when this guy started, but I'm guessing she was the boss. This guy started working for her. You and I, like, we started at the bottom and worked our way up. So we started at the bottom as friends.
Started at the bottom, now we're here. Started at the bottom, now the whole gang's here.
We're like the Jeffersons. We're moving on up.
Yes, moving on up.
Look at that 50-year-old reference.
I know, right? Look at us.
So,
impressive.
But you get what I'm saying? So our situation is a little bit different because we started at the bottom. We became friends, became best friends. I got to know your family and other friends. You
became Uncle Danny.
Yeah, your whole world. And then we started moving on up, and then we reach our respective positions that we're in now. So there's a little more gray area in our particular situation.
Great.
With that being said, we're both very vocal of like, okay, work mode. This is how we're going to deal with this situation or deal with this person and whatnot. Case by case situation. But then, after hours, non-business hours, work, we're back to, being friends, or even sometimes at work stuff. It's like, okay, from a boss, we got to treat the situation like this, even though as a friend, we know, okay, this is what's really going on or whatnot. It's a lot of gray area. It's not black and white. And I think just life in general, there's a lot of gray area. With that being said, this person here, it sounds a little more black and white compared to you and I. So I think this person, I think she has every right to speak up and say, listen, I'm just your boss here. Like, we're cool as friends to a certain extent. And that's the thing. I have a lot of work relations with people. I think we're cool as friends. Yeah. We're friends at work. And this is a great example. How many times we worked with people who we thought were at work, were great friends, but as soon as they got let go or quit or whatever the situation, they're gone out of your life. You never hear from them again. So like, okay, so we're just work friends. Like,
I've been duped by that a few times, unfortunately. We both have.
So I think this is more of just a work friend. So I think that work friend is like maybe reading too much into this and like using this person. It makes you wonder, do they have not any other emotional support around them, family, friends that they can tap into? But then again, maybe sometimes I notice it's easier to talk to a coworker or someone out of my immediate circle because it's just a different perspective and it's easier to talk to almost like a stranger compared to someone really
Mhm.
close with. You know what I mean?
Oh, you do that. Like, you'll find people do that, like, on a plane, for example. They'll just start,
Yeah.
like, spitting out their whole life to you, and you're like, "I don't know this person," because it is exactly what you just said. It's like, "Okay, this person doesn't have preconceived notions of me.
Yeah.
They're outside of my frame of reference," and so it becomes very pure. I think
It's like Forrest Gump. He just starts
yeah,
opening up on
right,
the bench.
exactly. Life is a box of chocolates, exactly. I think I think where you're headed, your inclination is right. Where you're setting up sort of these boundaries by just not responding outside of office hours. I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to start. It's like you do have to have your own boundaries. This is my time. That's work time. And if it gets too too personal inside of work hours, I do agree with Huey. I think you do at some point need to say something like, "Hey, I
Eh,
really appreciate our closeness and I appreciate that you trust me with these things, but I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that, we have a working relationship,
Yeah.
and try to find a professional way to say it.
I don't have
Because
time
it's
for
not
you.
going to end well. Yeah, I don't have time for you. Yeah.
What's
Yeah. Bitch,
the
I ain't your therapist. Okay, maybe don't say that.
what was the joke? Or like, I don't have time for any more new friends. Like, leave me
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
but that's my
Seriously,
thing.
though.
It's. I think it's important to be vocal. I think it's important to have heart to heart conversations with people. But yeah, set up those boundaries. Like, listen, I'm your boss. Like, let's just deal with the work here. If we
Yeah.
talk outside work, that's fine. But like, I can't get caught up in all this other stuff. Like, and just ask them, maybe can you ask some other people to help you out or do something with with the situation to resolve this.
Yeah.
It's just say, it's a lot for me to take on. I'm not ready to. I think it's important just to be vocal. That's my big thing. Speak
I
up.
agree. I think I would be really cautious of giving them advice that would steer them in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
and then that might come back and haunt me at work. Like there's that boundary of personal and professional. I wanted to read a couple of comments. So Dan is saying,
Okay.
"I'm super tight with my boss, the owner. Being older, I have clear lines of what is work and what is friendship. There's also a level of respect for him as an employer." That's really, really well said. Yeah. And that's the way you have to have it. Unfortunately, that's not the way that everybody usually does. I had a boss one time that treated me way too much like a friend, and that one came back to bite me in the ass because I was
Mm.
young and I thought we were friends, and then it turned out we weren't friends. And he just actually wanted to date me. Okay, Chris Relva, I found you open yourself up to certain levels of interaction. I agree with Huey. Sometimes you have to measure your empathy or sympathy without judgment or guidance that helps to make a boundary. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Huey is better at this than I am, actually. Like, I think you are more of a private person. Like, you make smarter decisions about your privacy, and you're more
Yeah.
level-headed than I am. I don't have a filter, and so oftentimes I overshare. That's part of my nature, and I will find sometimes I have done that in levels of professionalism where I'm like, maybe shouldn't have said that to my boss or whatever.
Well, my situation is a little different because I was very vocal about my personal life in the past, and I got
Hmm.
kind of burnt from it. I'll
You have
just
trauma
leave it.
tied to it now.
Yeah, let's just how can I phrase this?
See, this is what I'm saying. Huey thinks before he
Okay.
speaks. I don't always.
Well, in the
I don't always
past,
do what he's doing right now.
in the past, I felt like the only way I could get on the air if I
Hmm.
had a goofy or embarrassing story to share. And so
If you were the
with
heel, look at
yeah,
my wrestling reference.
uh,
If
but
you were
good
wait,
job.
with
No,
the
I was
heel
gonna
would be
say,
a bad guy. What
yeah, the
is
bad
that?
guy, the
The
clown.
villain?
It'd be more
Oh,
like
the
the
clown.
clown. I mean,
It'd be more like the clown.
I
Okay,
felt like in the past,
you had
over
to be
the
the butt of the joke.
yeah, over the last 20 years working in radio, for example, I felt like the only way my value to the station was I had like the only way I can get on the air is if I had an embarrassing or goofy story to share. And so
Yeah.
with that, it just kind of sucked over time. I was like, okay, people are only hearing my voice when I have something ridiculous to share about what happened to me in my personal life. And I don't want people just to know me for that as a clown. There's a lot more
Sure.
layers to me that I want people to know about. And so with that, I started pulling back a little bit and pulling up more of a
Yeah.
wall because I'm like, I want people to know me more for me. But now I'm not getting as much airtime as I wanted to, or
Right.
as I was hoping for. And so it's a
Yeah.
catch 22. It's like, okay, do I have to do ridiculous things? Do people only see value in me by being a jackass? And I thought
Right.
I don't want people to know me for that. So
And that's totally
mm,
fair. And
yeah,
sometimes that can backfire on you. Those boundaries and to our friend who wrote in, Kara, I believe it was. I just lost the
yeah.
screen. Let's see.
I
Was it
was just
Kara?
looking here. I realized, yeah, it just it does sucks for her because her boss is coming to her for
Right,
help and
exactly. That's where I'm
guidance.
saying it that could backfire you. I don't want to sit here and be like kumbaya, put up your boundaries and everything will be okay because we don't know what kind of person this boss is. And sometimes
Yeah,
putting, as you have found, sometimes putting up boundaries can backfire. That can have
yeah.
some sort of reaction. But I have to say, I don't think that's reason for you to not put up boundaries. I think boundaries are important. And I think where your comfortability, whatever that means, to your boss or your coworkers or whatever, I think that's worth putting up that boundary.
I will say real quick for her situation, this is a situation where I think, have it in writing too. This is your boss coming at you and you're starting to feel uncomfortable. At least
Yeah,
tell your boss, hey, listen, I appreciate all the help, but I just don't have the time and energy to talk about all this personal stuff. Have it in writing. So if there's ever a situation of whose story, one side versus the other story, at
yeah,
least you have like
yeah,
a paper trail to get you out
yeah,
of the situation because this is your boss coming to you and you're feeling uncomfortable. So at least you
yeah.
have a paper trail. Like I'm from a more legal standpoint. That's what I'm getting at too. Uh,
Agreed. Paper trail is always key.
yeah, no, and then
Yeah.
but okay, for you and I have no problem when you come talk to me about something that's bothering you. I'm always, an open ear whenever you need
Oh, you're my
something.
sounding board for everything. There's no
Yeah,
question about
yeah.
it.
So,
But I typically don't do that inside of work hours. That's typically on like
yeah,
a
yeah,
weekend where you and I are out
exactly.
having beers.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
different thing.
That too. And I think that's the thing. It's like separate the two because then it
Yeah,
just if yeah, you don't want to blur the lines too much. Like work stuff is work stuff. Outside after hours, save it for that too.
exactly. Yeah.